So we welcome all of our attendees this morning. We're obviously talking about the new OHS Bill and how it's going to affect plumbers. But before we start, the tips to continually prevent COVID-19, as well as the tips to continually prevent any type of biological or occupational illness that could affect you as a plumber. So things like washing your hands regularly with soap and water. When this is not available, keep that alcohol-based hand sanitizer that you bought during COVID. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth with unwashed hands. Where possible, adhere to your social distancing measures, and then cover any cough or sneeze with a flexed elbow or specifically a tissue, and then you can throw that tissue in the bin. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects and surfaces, and then do your part in accordance with the government gazetted COVID-19 regulations to get vaccinated. If you do not have any COVID management systems in place, please reach out to us. We have designed ones for you. For all IOPSA members, you get this free of charge. If you would like this information, you can just contact us on info@ohss.co.za or send us a WhatsApp on 071-875-2070. So our Toolbox Talk this morning, as we mentioned, coming up for February, we talked today about the new OHS Bill. What is this going to mean throughout this year? How is this going to change safety files or safety in general, specifically for our companies? And then what is going to have an impact on you as a plumber later on? Then we're going to look at what is a Toolbox Talk and why is it important to know what a Toolbox Talk is and how are you going to design ones in the future? And then do you have a safety mindset? And we'll end the month off by struck by what are the dangers. Please remember this struck by initiative, gaining information or developing these stats on struck by injuries and accidents within the plumbing industry is something that we are going to be focusing on for the rest of the year. Now, as we mentioned last week, we are discussing this with FEM, the Federated Employees Mutual Fund. They are also trying to assist all plumbers in the industry. Obviously, you can get your letter of good standing through them as well. You have the option of choosing Department of Labor or FEM, and they can assist you with your letter of good standing. But because they want to prevent incidents and accidents, we are begging the plumbers to please get in touch with us and tell us about any incident and accident that is occurring. Now, we've got an anonymous line where we send you out a link. You can then just complete that link. We're not going to ask for your name or your contact details. We're just asking about what happened on site. Even if it is not struck by, we want to collect all information of incidents and accidents so that we can try and look for solutions to prevent this from future occurrences. And this could potentially bring down incidents and accident stats within the plumbing industry in future. So please reach out to us if you have experienced any incidents or accidents, or ask us for this link and we can send it out to you. So the current Occupational Health and Safety Act, which was enacted in 1993, and as you can see, because it's such a long time ago, there is definitely a need to update this because legislation and even the way we work nowadays has changed. And so we need a new, a more dynamic type of robust health and safety system to match the type of risks and hazards that we are facing. Now, I know many of you have probably seen it. Maybe you've seen it on social media or it's getting sent around on the WhatsApp groups about what was there before safety. Well, before safety, we had common sense and everybody was safe. And yes, that's true. Before safety, it seemed like everyone was safe. But with the growth in technology and also digital means of communication, we are now starting to see the necessity of more strict health and safety measures because a lot of deaths actually did occur before safety. That is why safety came about. Now, you may think, well, safety came about because you needed to be charged for safety. No, that's not true. The reason why safety came about is because of statistical analysis showing how many people were actually getting injured compared to what we were just seeing. So let me give you an example. With the, let's say, 2,000 plumbers within the Joburg, Cape Town, and Durban area, out of those 2,000 plumbers, we have each one of them burning themselves on one of those Rothberger burners that they use to weld or solder on their plumbing pipes. And so each one is burning themselves almost every week on this. Now, in your company, you might only see 4 of these incidents. So it's happened 4 times to you, perhaps to 4 different people, but you've got 10 different projects happening. And so, looking at your stats saying, well, it's happening 4 times compared to other major hazards. This is only just a small burn. It's not serious. Nobody's going to hospital. They can get first aid treatment and they're able to look after themselves. But multiply that by 2,000 plumbers. Well, you can see now we have 8,000 occurrences of this every month. This is aside from plumbers falling off ladders, plumbers almost cutting their fingers off because of the incorrect use of grinders, or perhaps the grinding disc breaking or exploding when using it because of the damaged type of discs that we are putting on to the actual grinder, or using a big grinding disc until it's small and then thinking we can put it on a baby grinder. All of these things happened before, but they happened on such a large scale that we couldn't see it because we didn't have the means to calculate this information. And that is why the OHS Act needs to be updated. So while the OHS Act currently is legally enforceable, it is managed by the Department of Labor. The aim of the new amendment bill is to ensure that businesses have direct consequences for non-compliance. Now, this is not saying that they are only going to give you non-compliances for wrong things and not reward you for the positive. Well, what is your reward for the positive? There's no nice grand prize at the end of this. What you are going to be getting is a safer working environment for your employees. So this government gazette, or this new amendment bill, is going to be signed into legislation in the first half of this year. It enforces stricter health and safety requirements for all businesses. And while it's not in law yet, it is extremely important that all member plumbers understand the severity of what this law is going to enact. Now, for many of you, pre-2014, working in the construction industry, you'll remember when the construction regulations came out and they were enacted and enforced from 2014. And then it took a little bit of time. Although it came into force, the government still gave us a little bit of time in order to really fully implement it. But now that it's fully implemented, we can see safer construction sites compared to previous construction sites pre-2024, 2014 rather. So that new construction regulations assisted us in designing better management systems to help us keep a safer construction site. Now, for you member plumbers, you probably saw the change, the difference. Before 2014 and after 2014, the amount of paperwork, the amount of documentation, the amount of safety that you have to put in place now just to get onto a construction site or to work in construction with your clients. Yes, I do fully agree with all of our member plumbers, and you've spoken to me about this before. Some do go overboard. It seems like it's overboard. And I have had that situation, but it's purely because they sometimes don't understand the scope of your application, of what you're going to be doing. And so they're not too sure which part of the legislation to apply to you. So they just apply the entire legislation. It is our responsibility as practitioners to be able to then find out which is the applicable part of legislation and put that into practice for your specific scope. Now, yes, it does seem like sometimes it goes overboard because of the amount of documentation, but please remember, we take your scope of work and your risk into account. Every single task needs a risk assessment. No matter what you do on a site, you have to have a risk assessment in place. But the type of risk assessment, the degree, the severity, and even the size of your risk assessment is all going to depend on how much work or the type of work you're going to be performing. And you will see that sometimes you have just a very small risk assessment because the job that you are doing is low risk and very small. But sometimes you're working on a roof, inside a ceiling, on a scaffold, working at heights. Perhaps you're working in windy conditions, working in sewers, working with methane, working inside confined spaces. Now, because of that scope of work, your risk assessment gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So yes, the bigger projects you take on, the more strict your risk assessments will be. The less that you take on, the less the risk, the smaller the risk assessment will be. But you still need to tick that box of having a risk assessment performed. So the new legislation is still going to uphold the current objective to provide for the health and safety of persons at work and for the health and safety of persons in connection with the use of any plant and machinery, to protect persons other than your employees, so to protect any passerby, your client, your subcontractors, or any private individual that might be in and around the work that you're performing. And then it's also to ensure that the government, in terms of the Department of Labor, looks after all matters connected with occupational health and safety. And so that advisory council is still set up, and that is why the advisory council has decided to amend the OHS Act and bring in a lot stricter requirements. One of the biggest things that we have seen that is going to be changing is the legislation on Section 7 and also your risk assessment, so risk management, because risk management is such a huge part of health and safety. So let's explain what's going to be changing. Because it's not enacted yet, it went out into basically just a trial period out into the safety community for us to comment on it. It became a draft. But once the draft was finalized, they said, well, now it will be enacted. And so these are the things of the change to the bill that we felt fundamentally is going to change things in terms of health and safety for you as our member plumbers. So the first thing is Section 7. Now, Section 7 of the OHS Act currently tells all companies to have a health and safety policy in place. Something very simple. It's a one-page document, normally sometimes 2 pages, depending on what you're going to be putting into that policy. And it tells everyone else what you are going to achieve. So it is the what of what your company stands for in terms of health and safety. Then all the other documents, your safe working procedures, method statements, risk assessments, tells us how you're going to achieve that. And then that forms part of your health and safety system or your safety file. Now that is being changed to align more with international standards. And the reason for that is, according to the revised definition, a health and safety management system means a coordinated, comprehensive set of interrelated or interacting elements to establish occupational health and safety policy and objectives in order to optimally manage health and safety. What does this mean? It basically means that in your entire company, all the processes from purchasing to sales, to sitting behind a desk and doing quotes or invoices, to physically driving a vehicle, packing your vehicle, loading a vehicle, unloading a vehicle, driving to site, getting to site, setting up the site, doing the work on site. All of those processes must be managed from a risk perspective, an occupational health and safety perspective, because it is the occupation of your company to perform all of those tasks. It's not just when you get to a site and have to actually do the plumbing work. It must be interrelated with all processes within the company. So what does this mean? Well, it means you're not going to have a safety file for site. That will be separate to your company's health and safety management system. You see, the system that you have in place will incorporate all of your processes, including your site files, which means your site files will only become one part of your entire safety management system. You need to look at all aspects. The purchasing of equipment. Are you looking at the purchasing of equipment from a health and safety perspective? Well, what does this mean? Well, let's say you buy a drill. You need to drill, you need to put anchors in order to secure piping to a wall. And so you go out and you buy a drill. The government wants to know, have you thought about the health and safety aspect when buying that drill? Well, a very simple procedure could be that you're going to buy a drill that is in accordance with the SANS standard. You're going to make sure that the drill has a dead man switch. Now, you're not the manufacturer, but you know that if you buy a very cheap drill from a corner hardware store somewhere that's quite dodgy, and the writing on the actual box where you're buying the drill doesn't conform to European standards or SANS standards or even your current SANS standards, you can see that you're probably going to be purchasing a drill that isn't adhering to safety standards in terms of what South African legislation requires of manufacturers. But you're buying it because it's cheap. The problem there is that there is a high possibility for something going wrong with that tool and causing injury to the employee operating that tool. So the government is saying, employers, don't be penny wise and pound foolish. You see, buy something in terms of health and safety that's going to protect your employees so that you don't have the payout of an employee not coming to work because they're injured and you still have to pay their salaries. Or perhaps you have to keep filling up your first aid kit all the time because you have so many small injuries on site that you have to constantly upkeep your fire equipment, your first aid equipment, or your safety equipment because of all these injuries. Whereas right at the start, you can purchase things that are already safe. Purchase things with a mindset of future safety for the employees. But now it goes further than this. Because what about your maintenance of those tools? Remember, you need to provide and maintain your safety system. Now, this is where risk management comes in. Because you are managing risk, it means it's a day-to-day activity. So once you've taken a look at all the processes within your company, you identify the various risks within your company, within each process. And this could be financial risk. It could be risk in terms of health. It could be risk in terms of safety, risk in terms of quality, risk in terms of environment, all of those risks that you perform to run a business as an employer. You know how to run your business. We're not telling you how to run your business. But we're saying all those risk factors need to have a mindset of health and safety included in it. Sometimes it'll be small. Sometimes it'll be a little bit larger. Sometimes you actually don't have it at the moment and you just need to include it into that part. Like we said about buying the actual drill. This would be across the board with any other process that you perform. Even if you were sitting at a desk doing invoicing, we would look at the ergonomic risks, the employee's table setup. Is it set up correctly? Is it in the right manner in order to promote health and safety? So not that they don't get hurt, but the promotion of health and safety to keep them safe as a maintenance system. Now, in addition to Section 8 of the Act, the documents that will be required in terms of the risk assessment or risk management is now going to require a documented risk management plan. So not just the risk assessment, but a management plan. In other words, you take all your risks, you put them down onto a plan, and you tell whoever it is, your employees, your clients, how you are going to mitigate them in the correct manner. Now, this is not the same as a risk assessment. The assessment just assesses your final risk. The risk management plan tells us how you are actually going to manage that moving forward. And this is going to be interrelated. It's going to be interrelated with all other risks within your company. So please remember, we are looking at this new legislation affecting your company. The site files are only going to be a byproduct of your actual management system. So this is going to be separate from the entire safety management file or system that you have in place currently. It's going to be over and above. It's going to be a new process that has to be put in place. So what does this mean? Well, a risk assessment is the process for evaluating the risk of an employee's health and safety, but it is a systematic assessment, and they want to see that system in place. They want to see that it considers a complete hazard identification, not for the job that you are going to do. It's not a site-specific file. This is for your company. So all the processes within your company. It needs to have an identification of any person who may be affected by that hazard, and then the varying degrees of how the person is going to be affected. Then there must be an analysis and evaluation of the risk. This is where your risk assessment comes in. That normal document that's sometimes on an Excel spreadsheet that evaluates the risks, that is the actual risk assessment. The risk management plan is going to incorporate the complete hazard identification, all persons who can be affected and how they can be affected. It then includes the risk assessment and then the plan to prioritize the risk, always looking at what is the highest risk, the most catastrophic risk, and how you are going to protect your employees from that risk, and then move down to high, medium, low, and then non-catastrophic or non-significant type of risks. Now, it depends on how you design your risk assessment, your management system. It all really depends on who you are going to get to implement this type of risk assessment. But what we know is the new bill is going to affect you as plumbers, because plumbers must review their current safety system. Now, we are not talking about the safety files that you are using at sites for your clients. We are talking about your company's health and safety system. So one that is used internally within your company. Now, you might be sitting there saying, but Chris, I work from home. Well, that's fine. You can still have a management system for your company, because even though you work from home, there are still processes in place of how you run the company. So you might have a small management system, but you still need to have a management system. We are not saying that you have to go and spend thousands of rands to design one. You could design it yourself. But IOPSA has assisted you with this. We've actually designed a safety management system for you as a template to assist companies with this. But it means that you need to actually review what you have. And if you don't have it, accept what we give you and actually implement it. Now, if you don't implement it and you just take it in as a standard or as a template, you are not going to pass when the Department of Labor comes through to check if you have this management system in place. The change to properly designed and functional safety management systems is what they are looking for, because they know that it's going to help you as a plumber to mitigate hazards and ensure that your employees are safe on a day-to-day basis. So this comprehensive set of procedures, it's been designed, it's there, but if you don't have it in place, the non-compliance or the penalties for non-compliance are going to be a lot stricter. With the new amendment bill, inspectors will be given the power to issue administrative fines on the spot. Administrative fines means you do not have documentation in place to prove the what you want to achieve, not the doing, but the what, the proof that you actually are doing it on site. This includes not establishing a health and safety committee where required, not ensuring health and safety committee meets every 2 months. These fines for an administrative infringement are 50,000 Rand per infringement. Now, if you think of paying for a safety file for a few grand is expensive, then don't be penny wise and pound foolish by thinking I'm not going to go and get myself set up for some training and to get a safety management system. I'd rather wait to see if a fine can come out. Now, remember, these are on-the-spot fines. Previously, or what currently happens, is the Department of Labor will come out and then they will issue you an infringement notice, and then they will give you 21 days to adhere to this. And many plumbers say, well, I'll wait for that because then at least it gives me 21 days. In this case, you will be given 21 days, but you will also be given that spot fine of 50,000 Rand per infringement, which means you have 21 days to sort it out, but you also have to pay 50,000 Rand to that Department of Labor inspector on the day, not after the 21 days. And that is because most companies currently do not have a system in place, because they wait for the Department of Labor to pitch up, and then they put it in place during that 21-day period where they rush to put in a set of systems. That will still be enacted, but you will just have an inclusion of a 50,000 Rand infringement or contravention fine as well. So what should you do? Well, as we mentioned, we've already developed the standardized system that is released at the end of the prime course. Now, if you want to buy the system, that's fine. But as IOPSA members, you get it for free if you finish the prime course. So once you finish the prime course, you will then get this 15,000 Rand safety management system free of charge. But we are not going to allow you to get it for free if you have not done the training. So the new prime course for plumbers is currently being reviewed because of the current legislation change, but 7 out of the 10 courses are already available for you. They are being put onto the LMS system as well, and they will be ready on the LMS system very shortly. But if you'd like to start with that course, we encourage you to reach out to us. If you have already registered and you haven't heard back, keep telling us about it. The amount of value that you're going to be getting is going to help you this year. We can promise you that. The course is obviously going to be fully reviewed once the bill is operational, fully enacted, and then we will make a few changes and send you an additional information on that. But you could save yourself 15,000 Rand in the next few months just by putting yourself onto that prime course. If you want to know more, we're also going to be at the Plumbers Evening in Gauteng on Thursday night. You can come up to me and chat to me about that. Otherwise, send us an email or get in touch with us on safety@iopsa.org. Now, we mentioned to you last week as well, coming up for this whole year, we're going to be doing a lot more site visits in and around your area. We will tell you when we are going to be in your area. We are also going to be going to all the approved training centers in and around South Africa that are IOPSA approved. We are also going to be looking at monthly hot topics, these safety discussions that are going to be recorded and put onto the LMS system for you to watch at any given time. So we're not going to tell you you have to meet at 7 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. We are just going to record them, put them online, and you have got the whole month to watch those. Then obviously at the Plumbers Evenings, as we mentioned, nationally, we're going to try and join your Plumbers Evenings throughout the year and come and discuss more of these hot topics with you, the incidents and accidents that we are facing, as well as the amendment bill changes and what we can do for you in terms of prime. So we want to say thank you to all of our plumbers. We really hope that we're going to bring a lot of benefit and a lot of value to our members coming out this year. But we need to hear from you, and we need you to accept what we are giving you. So please reach out to us. We do want to assist you as member plumbers. Remember, these Toolbox Talks are proudly brought to you by IOPSA for all its members. So get in touch with us, safety@iopsa.org. They are designed and presented, as well as their health and safety management systems, by OHS Consulting. You can get in touch with them, info@ohss.co.za, or WhatsApp them 071-875-2070. And for CPD points, if you are a SIOSH member, you'll get 1 CPD point per Toolbox Talk that you join. And for PRB members, you get 1 CPD point for joining all 4 of the monthly Toolbox Talks. So thank you again.